What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Lakers Outsiders podcast. I am Gary Kester. You probably don't recognize me. I haven't been on the podcast in about 12 years, but I made it back. We're back. I don't even know if you can call us like the Three Amigos or some kind of trio nickname, but we're reunited. Jacob Root and Hani Amadian joined me, and we're gonna just get off and running today. But first, if Jacob and I are hostile towards each other, it's just because North Carolina plays Duke tomorrow. So I may not even address Jacob at all on this podcast, and I expect the same done to me. So it's just gonna be me and Hani basically.
Hey, Hani, can you tell Gary go to hell?
Okay. One, I'm not going to do that, but instead I'm going to say Gary and I don't have to be hostile because Nevada already beat Boise State this year, so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
A week from tonight, Boise State will get payback. So,
all right, buddy.
That's not an official prediction because if it was, it would be wrong. But anyways,
if they lose, are you going to duck me again for 3 weeks?
Probably. I'll duck you until football season. But no, so let's talk about the Lakers, shall we? The trade deadline is just hours away now. What are we? 12, 14 hours, something like that. Tomorrow afternoon, noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, the NBA trade deadline will come and go. And that's, I'd say probably about 2 hours before all of a sudden GMs will show a sense of urgency to make some trades. Basically, like me trying to finish an assignment for any of my classes. So the Lakers have been obviously at the forefront of the discussion, like they always are in NBA circles. But this is going to be an interesting trade deadline for the Lakers because we've kind of known about their plans for this summer coming up. They freed a lot of cap space by shedding the Timofey Mozgov trade, by trading D'Angelo Russell to the Nets in exchange for Brook Lopez and the 27th pick, which ended up being Kyle Kuzma. And we'll talk more about free agency a little bit later. But Hani, I'm going to throw it to you. How are you feeling about this trade deadline? Personally, I'm a little nervous because with these things, you just never know what's going to happen. And that's kind of exciting, but it's also very nerve-wracking at the same time. So how are you feeling going into tomorrow afternoon's deadline?
I mean, nervous is probably the perfect description of me. Every time I get in my car to drive somewhere, I'm just hoping that my phone doesn't buzz next to me, that I would be tempted to look at it and see what the hell's going on. But yeah, I mean, I've been basically this entire year, I've kind of been expecting moves to be made at the trade deadline. And for the most part, the moves that I have been expecting are ones that I wouldn't want to happen. But, the last couple of days have, I guess, for me, been a little bit promising in that we're kind of seeing that the Lakers might not actually be as desperate to move guys by tomorrow and that they might have kind of changed their course a little bit to kind of stick with their young guys and see at least this season through with them.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that they seem to be pretty hell-bent on this plan of theirs, and now they're kind of changing course a little bit from what we've heard, which makes it even more unpredictable, and that much scarier for me because you just don't know. But Hani, can you ask Jacob? No, I'm just kidding. Jacob, I had kind of a mixture of emotions seeing the reports yesterday that the Lakers are kind of headed towards a quiet NBA trade deadline. Obviously, you take it with a grain of salt because anything can change quickly around this deadline, like it always seems to do. I mean, had a mixture of emotions of kind of being happy that the Lakers are being a little more patient, but a little upset because they made this trade over the summer with the Nets with a clear goal in mind, and now it seems like they're kind of backtracking a little bit. How did you feel about the reports yesterday that the Lakers are kind of softening their stance a little bit and kind of recalibrating when they'll use their cap space?
Annoyed. Kind of like what you said, that I don't really want to dive into the whole D'Angelo Russell trade again, but I mean, that's what I immediately thought of, that we just handed away an asset for nothing now. I'm of mixed feelings, kind of like you, because on one hand, they spent the better part of 5-6 months talking about these 2 max free agents, and then all after dealing D'Angelo, and now they're saying, actually, no, we changed our minds. But on the other hand, I mean, maybe they're learning, and maybe it's a good sign that the front office isn't going to go through with a plan that isn't going to work, that they're able to kind of step back and see, maybe it's not in our best interest to just clear all this cap space now and then strike out entirely. But I think as I said, kind of my overwhelming emotion was just kind of frustrated because it was something that a lot of us had said, that they didn't need to make that D'Angelo trade then, that they could do it this summer if it really came down to it. Because I still think there are teams that, if you still thought D'Angelo was a problem, and you still want to get rid of one of those contracts, there's still teams like the Bulls, maybe like the Mavericks, stuff like that. Maybe even the Nets still would add cap space that you can make that trade for. So I'm happy that it sounds like, knock on wood, that Clarkson and Randle will be with the team going forward, but I'm frustrated that basically D'Angelo isn't, when he was basically a casualty that didn't need to happen. D'Angelo died for this.
Died for their sins. But no, I would say the number one emotion for me, hearing that the Lakers could have a very quiet deadline tomorrow, I guess I was happier than anything. I've been kind of a big believer in trying to keep this young core together, which is why, I was upset at the D'Angelo trade in the first place. But now it's good to hear that, because I really want to see, because we're starting to see this team grow right now. In their last 15 games, they've won 11. They're 11-4 in the last month of play. I mean, that's huge progress. I don't know if they'll be able to sustain it the rest of the season, but I mean, this team is clearly better than they were last year. And I think the young guys have all taken steps forward. For me, I guess maybe the exception is Clarkson. I think Clarkson's about the same player that he is, but I think he's been a little bit better this year than he was last year. And yeah, I think just the young guys that they added in this draft, I will give this front office a ton of credit for the draft class that they put together last June, because Lonzo, I think, has been very impressive. Josh Hart has been very, very good, especially here as a starter in the past couple games, relegating Tyler Ennis to, I don't know, just like a abandoned island. But
the shadow realm.
Yeah. And then Kyle Kuzma obviously has been kind of the big surprise, and he's been just so good. And yeah, I just want to see this core grow together. And so if that means a quiet deadline tomorrow, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Like we've kind of said that if you need to clear cap space, you can do it in the summertime. Like if you need to shed Jordan Clarkson, if guys like LeBron James or Paul George want to sign with you, that's when you can start attaching future first round picks. And especially after this draft, the Lakers can trade any first round pick that they want, because that pick will be conveyed to either Philly or Boston, depending on where it falls. And then the Lakers pick situation for first rounders is clear. They're kind of back to even finally after 12,000 years, because of that Steve Nash trade, that they'll finally be back. But yeah, I just want to see this core grow together. Like I think I wanted to see them grow with Luke Walton, and I'm holding my breath. I'm holding my breath for tomorrow, just kind of hoping and praying. But
I really think the last 15 games really kind of swayed a lot in favor of them waiting, because these guys have looked really, really good, and doing it almost entirely without Lonzo too. I don't know to what degree, but I'm certain that it played a role in the Lakers kind of changing their stance a little bit. I mean, I pulled up some of the stats. They're third in defensive rating, seventh in net rating, and about middle of the table in offensive rating in that span. But I mean, they're playing really well. Like you said, they're 11-4 in their last 15 games. I really do think that played a part in kind of how the narrative has started to change. because it was kind of around the beginning of this streak that we started to get some of the initial reports that maybe the Lakers weren't going to trade Randle, which that could be dated back to even the beginning of the year, his play at least. He's been good all season, but that maybe they weren't going to trade Randle and maybe they were going to hold on to him. Clarkson, on the other hand, has kind of been thrown around in a lot of different trade talks, but I don't know. I think this win streak or this kind of stretch of 15 games has really changed everyone's kind of mindset about the Lakers because, I mean, it came right on the heels of them looking really, really bad and everybody being, myself included, being really, really low on the Lakers.
It looked like the season was over.
100%.
Less than halfway through.
Yeah, I mean, I went on a huge Twitter rant about how frustrated I was with the front office and everything. So, I mean, as much as I said I was frustrated and annoyed with the decision, I mean, you were right. I mean, I want this core to grow together. I want them all to be there. We can keep everybody on the roster and add a Paul George level max player, just straight add him to the roster we have for next season. Just do that. I mean, like, you don't have to necessarily trade Clarkson right now when you're not sure if LeBron and PG are coming. So just keep everybody now. They'll be easier to trade with 1 year left on their contract, one less year left on their contract this summer, and deal with it then. So I've been really encouraged by this core, and I'm in the same boat. I just want them to be together. I've grown attached to most of them. I just want them to be together and to grow through this together.
I think for the Lakers, I don't think they're going to be able to trade Luol Deng. But if they did, do you think like it's required that they have to find out where he is? Because I haven't seen him anywhere in like since the season opener.
I'll have to look. He was
posting him on the bench.
He was posting to his Instagram story for a while, like when he was out. I'm looking now. He hasn't posted on there in a while, so maybe something's happened. I don't know. It looked like he was in LA for a while, but now I'm not sure where he's at.
I just picture him sitting on a beach somewhere during Laker games, like lighting up cigars with $100 bills.
I think he's still stuck in that escape room they went to in Milwaukee.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Just locked him in there, and they're gonna call Adam Silver and see if they get a better exception for.
We can't find him, so can we just get out of this?
That's crazy. Luke and Luol went into this escape room, and only Luke came out. I mean, I don't know. It must just be a coincidence.
Oh man! All right. So the two main targets that have been kind of brought up in rumors for the Lakers and trade deadline talks are Julius Randle and Jordan Clarkson. So I think everybody's kind of keeping a close eye on them tomorrow and seeing if, they have played their last games as Lakers or not. Hani, I'm going to throw this to you first. Out of those two, which one do you think is most likely to be traded before the deadline tomorrow?
I would say Clarkson, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, I think even though we would all agree that Randle is a better player, I think Clarkson might actually have a little more trade value. Him being under contract, even if it's not a super team-friendly contract, just makes it so that whichever team is trading for him isn't getting a rental. They know for sure that they're going to have him for a couple of years. With Randle, any team that wants him is going to look at the Lakers cap situation, know that they've been pretty adamant about wanting to sign 2 free agents, and know that they have a chance of just kind of pressuring the Lakers by giving Randle an offer sheet in the summer and hoping that the Lakers just don't match it. So for that reason, I think it's Clarkson. And then the other thing is, I don't think the Lakers are crazy about trading Randle when they're probably not getting great deals for him. The one that we've kind of all heard about, and I don't remember who reported it, but it was New Orleans saying you can have Alexis Ajinça and a second-round pick for Randle.
The Athletic. I don't know who at The Athletic, but it was The Athletic.
Yeah. Right.
I would start a riot in the streets if the Lakers would have accepted that trade.
Because for the Lakers, it doesn't make sense that you take Ajinça, who has, I believe, another year on his contract. So you're taking on more money,
and you're only getting a second-round pick to show for it. It's just not worth it. If you really need the cap space, just let him walk in the summer. If you're not getting a really good asset back, like a first-round pick for him, then it's really not. It's pointless to trade him.
Yeah, I mean, I for me, this is a really tough question because you can make a strong case for both. Jacob, do you agree with Hani? Do you think it's Clarkson, or do you think we should watch more closely to see if Randle's going to be dealt?
I'm worried that Randle's going to be dealt. Hani said, I think he's objectively the better player, and I think he still has room to grow. Whereas you said earlier, I think this is who Clarkson is, and this is probably Clarkson at his best. I'm still not sure that this version of Clarkson is worth his contract that he has now. Whereas with Randle, as I said, he's improved every year. He's improved throughout this year. He was in incredible shape, and we saw how big that was for him. He's been kind of the anchor defensively for this team all year. I think, I don't know. Basically the Lou Williams deal today, the extension, kind of got me wondering just how much money is going to be available this summer. I know a lot of people kind of talked about it, and I know Lou Williams definitely took a bit of a discount because I think somebody reported basically he's tired of moving teams and really likes it in LA. But if Lou Williams is only going for $8 million a year, and there's only, Anthony wrote it today in a piece, there's only so many teams, like a very finite amount of teams. I want to say 4 or 5 that really have substantial cap space. I really don't think Randle's going to be priced out that much this summer is basically the point I'm getting at. So even though you're basically trading for the right to pay Randle, he's a really good young player who's becoming a really good defensive player that probably isn't going to be priced out that much this summer. So I don't know. I think the big thing, though, is, as I said, he's the better player. He can come into a contending team and contribute right away as a starter. I think with Clarkson, your best hope is that he's a good sixth man, and I don't know if you want to pay $12 million for a sixth man that has kind of been on again, off again each season. One season he's good, one season he's not. You're kind of not sure which Clarkson you're getting, whereas Randle's just kind of been on a steady incline and improvement every year. So I don't know. I'm nervous. I've been kind of feigning confidence that Randle won't be traded, but I'm pretty nervous about it.
Yeah, I'm really. I'm always nervous about the trade deadline just because I don't know. Maybe it's PTSD from free agency 2 years ago, and just not knowing what's going to happen at any given point when transactions are made in the NBA. But no, this is really tough because, like I said earlier, and I think you both made great points, which is the nicest thing I'm ever going to say about you two. But I could see, either of them or both being traded, honestly. I could see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. If I had to guess, and knock on wood, I don't think either will get traded, which means they'll definitely both get traded now. But one person in our live chat here just goes by SD, actually brought up an interesting point about the whole Lou Williams extension. And now that he's off the table, I want to say congrats to Lou Williams. I think he's been really, really good the past couple of years, and I think he's kind of underrated now.
He's really underrated.
Should have been an all-star this year, in my opinion. So I was glad to see him get an extension with the Clippers, and hope him the best because I actually enjoyed him as a Laker last year. Not so much the first year, but with him not being available now, you would think. Actually, he can't be traded, I think, because he signed an extension.
6 months, but, 6 months he can't be traded for.
But, I think that would kind of boost Clarkson's trade value a little bit, knowing that kind of bench scorer, one of the top bench scorers not there. So teams might look elsewhere. And Clarkson, is one of the better bench scorers in the league. And so I'd be curious to see if teams kind of up their offers as the deadline draws closer, because I think, when there's less than an hour to go, teams will start to kind of get real with one another a little bit more, and you can't kind of keep lowballing other teams. You have to really work hard to make a deal or you're going to run out of time. So I'm going to be nervous.
The same thing to Hani last night. We were talking when the Lou Williams kind of rumors about an extension broke, and I said this boosts the Clarkson trade market because I think Clarkson is a poor man's version of Lou Williams in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I'm 100% in agreement. I think this boosts the trade value or the trade market, maybe not necessarily the value for Clarkson. And, yeah, it'll be interesting, as you kind of said. Nobody's giving their best offer right now, probably, 15 hours before the deadline. They'll give their best offer an hour before the deadline. Yeah,
Mark Stein just tweeted out that looks like the Spurs and the Clippers are talking about an Avery Bradley trade. So, there are deals to be made.
Get a first-round pick for Avery Bradley, then the Lakers can absolutely get a first-round pick for Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, it's just interesting because there's so few teams that can really absorb money, and the Lakers don't want to take contracts back, which has kind of been, I guess, the issue, because there was that reported deal with the Pelicans that I think they were offering Ashik and a first-round pick for Clarkson, which Ashik still has a couple years left on his deal. So I think if you're the
Windhorst said, I guess on the jump, I didn't see this. I saw somebody tweet about it. He said it was the Lakers that offered that deal, though. Which
maybe it would make more sense. I think.
If they're shifting their focus to 2019 free agency, that makes sense to take on a pick that there's a good chance it's going to be in the late teens for a contract that I think Ashik was only guaranteed for like a couple million in 2019, 2020 or whatever.
And we've seen the Lakers add draft picks, to take on salary in years past, when they haven't been able to sign guys. We saw it. The Jeremy Lin trade is the first one that comes to mind. They took his contract and got a first-round pick, which I believe turned into Larry Nance Jr. And then last year they traded Lou Williams for Corey Brewer's contract and a first-round pick that turned into Josh Hart and Thomas Bryant. There's so many ways that this can go, but it's so hard to gauge because we don't really know what players are going to get paid this summer, which is why I'm more inclined to keep Randle, because I think a lot of people think he's going to get a big payday. And I really don't think it's going to be as high as people think, because there's not a lot of teams with a ton of cap space to burn this summer. And B, I think teams have just learned from that awful summer of 2016 where so many bad contracts were given out that, like, hey, we need to be a little more calculated in our approach for, just handing free agents a blank check and, make sure that Luol Deng doesn't get 18 million or Timofey Mozgov gets 16 million, and Joakim Noah and so on and so forth. So I think just teams are a lot more hesitant, and there's a lot of teams that don't want to go over the luxury tax line too. So there's a lot of different factors there. And I really think Randle can be, his cap hold, it's kind of unfortunate with one of the new provisions in the new CBA that his cap hold, even though his salary is about $4 million, his cap hold is going to be about $12.4 million. But the Lakers can, since he's a restricted free agent, they can wait and sign him kind of after the fact. So that's an advantage for them. But as much as I don't think teams will offer a ton for Randle, all it takes is one, right? All it takes is a Dallas Mavericks or somebody,
That's the team I'm most afraid of, because
they cap space.
That's where he's from too.
Yeah, that's where he's from. Cuban.
They never get
the Lakers.
Agents. They never get free agents, so they'll overpay to get some sort of big-ish name.
Yeah, it's a good thing Dirk took all those pay cuts, though. So it
really worked out for them
for titles. But no, it's because of the unpredictability of what this summer is going to hold in terms of how free agents are going to be valued, it makes this trade deadline very interesting. And I think to this point, it's been really quiet all around.
Yeah.
I feel like there's usually more deals done at this point.
I mean, after the Blake Griffin bombshell.
Yeah. I mean, NBA GMs are like the biggest procrastinators outside of college students, but I guess we'll see. Like we said, we got less than 15 hours to go, so we might wake up to some Woj bombs. So
I was terrified this morning to look at my phone when I woke up, thinking that Julius or somebody would have been traded. I just was like, do I really want to look at this, or do I just want to just go about my day and just act like it didn't happen?
Yeah, I'm not going to get very much stuff done at work tomorrow. So,
yeah.
Or maybe I will after 1:00 my time. I'll be able to settle down. But
Anthony, I mean, just one more thing about Julius, since we're talking about the summer. I mean, Anthony did have an interesting kind of hypothetical that in his piece he wrote. He kind of asked us, I mean, if we do keep Randle, do you think it's more likely he takes the qualifying offer of, I think it was $5.5 million, or do you think he would sign? I think Anthony proposed like a 2-year, $18 million year, basically $9 million annually and that would put him into the summer when all those 2016 contracts come off the book. Because I think it would be more likely he takes a qualifying offer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if it's a 2-year, I think he would take the 2-year. Honestly,
I don't know. I mean, like,
because you're guaranteeing more money, and you're only waiting an extra year.
Yeah, I guess I could see it.
I think the fact that he'd be entering, I mean, because once all those 2016 contracts come off the books, like there's so many teams that are going to have cap space suddenly.
We get to do it all over again.
Yeah. But I think that's what kind of made it intriguing, is that Randle's going in. That would be putting Randle into a summer when there's a whole lot of people that could want or that could sign him, as opposed to, like we said, this summer where there's only really like 4 or 5 basically.
Yeah. I don't know. And Rob Pelinka's kind of hinted at the fact that the thing that they can do with their cap space is re-sign their own guys.
Yeah.
He's recently said that, which was kind of encouraging. But at the same time, I mean, if you bring back the same team, like if they re-sign KCP and Brook Lopez, it's like, come on, man. Like, you got to make some upgrades somewhere. But no, I mean, on the free agent note, there's one soon to be free agent that is linked to the Lakers every day and has answered questions surprisingly about the Lakers all season long, even though he plays in Oklahoma City. And of course, that's Paul George. Why he keeps getting asked about what he's going to do this summer, I have no idea. But for some reason, he keeps answering questions. Today, he spoke with USA Today's Sam Amick, and I'll just read off this quote real quick on what he had to say about what lies ahead for him this summer. And Paul George said, well, quote, well, I'm happy here. I'm happy here. I'm happy with this group. At the end of the season, I'm still on my decision, what I need to do for my family. That has nothing to do with my happiness here, though. I've been really happy. It's a great organization to be a part of. But again, I don't want people looking at this and saying, hey, because he said it's his happiness at the end of the day, that he's definitely re-signing. And then kind of just brought up LA out of nowhere and said, I don't know if whether I'm going to LA or what I'm going to do this offseason, but I can say I'm happy about being here. I'm happy playing with Russ, happy playing with Melo. I feel like that's a big lie, but and he was complimentary of the Oklahoma City front office. For me, I don't know what to think about Paul George, honestly, because I think the Thunder have been pretty good this year. They're going to be competing for a pretty high playoff seed. And then I think it depends pretty heavily on what happens in the playoffs, on what his decision will be. Hani, I mean, are you still liking the Lakers' chances to be able to bring him back to LA?
I think the most promising thing about the Lakers' chances is that it seems like they're in a 2-man race. It's like Paul George's decision is going to come down to the Thunder or the Lakers. There's some other teams that might at the last minute give a pitch. Like the Spurs are always lurking. The Rockets, I don't think, have a lot of cap space, but Daryl Morey is just a genius at finding out ways to create it. So, there'll be other teams involved, but it seems like for the past year, his mindset has been on the Lakers, and now that he's on the Thunder, and I believe that he's enjoying his time there because their team is doing pretty well now. He has the Thunder to kind of look at as well, but it's really between those two teams. Now, the odds of him choosing the Lakers over the Thunder, I'm not super optimistic about, just because, like you said, their team is really gelling well right now. They were going on a huge streak since December until Andre Roberson got injured, fell into a slump, and then all of a sudden just smashed the Warriors the other night. So I do agree with you that the playoffs are going to be huge in him determining if he wants to stay in OKC or not. If they're a first round out or even maybe a second round out in a embarrassing fashion or something, then I could see him just saying, hey, this team isn't close to contending either. Might as well just go to my hometown, play in a much nicer city, and be where he's wanted to be for the past year at least.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion for so long now. When he was with the Pacers, we talked about, should the Lakers trade for him? Should they give up, some assets or, draft pick, young talent, whatever, to try and get him now? And I think we all agreed for the most part that it was wise to wait, because there were so many rumors and links to him wanting to be a Laker that there was too much to not, really take into consideration. You just couldn't ignore that. So, yeah, I mean, Jacob, he keeps answering these questions about the Lakers, which to me is interesting in itself. I mean, what do you make about what he's said so far about his situation and the fact that he keeps answering the question when really he doesn't need to at this point?
Well, first I want to say that I was in the boat to trade for him at the draft last year. But
so you were wrong.
Well, I'll let you know in about 6 months.
I was gonna say, we'll find out in July, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Paul George panders really well. Whatever you want him to say, he'll say at some point, which makes it really hard to ever really figure out what he means and what he's just saying. That being said, I mean, as I just said, he said some really nice things about the Lakers. A lot of times, kind of unsolicited. Nobody was forcing his hand to say, oh, go talk about LA being your home. And then he'll just throw out a quote that would be like, it would have been really cool for me to go home and play in LA last year. Or they didn't ask him to say, hey, even though you're happy, what do you think about the Lakers? And then he says, oh, my happiness doesn't matter. And it's stuff like that where it's just why would you say this if you weren't really still considering LA? So I've always stayed pretty optimistic, even though I said I wanted to trade for him. I've always been pretty optimistic that he's going to come to LA, and I don't think anything he said has really changed my mind. If anything, it's kind of reassured me or made me more confident that he's going to come to LA. But I think, like I said, the main point is that he panders, and for every quote he says that makes you think he's coming to LA, he'll say one that's well, nope, never mind. He's going to sign a 5-year deal in OKC. So I think overall, though, I'm pretty optimistic that he's going to come to LA.
I'm as optimistic as I've been for a free agent. Coming to the Lakers. For me, I think this is the best chance that they've had to land a marquee free agent in quite some time, and they've had cap space, a ton of cap space since 2014. But at the same time, it's for me, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. We've seen so many free agents get linked, and then nothing happens from it. We saw guys get linked to the Lakers that didn't even meet with them in 2016.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even hear what they had to say. But I do think there is something to be taken from the fact that he keeps answering these questions and he keeps mentioning LA, sometimes totally unsolicited. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know if he's leaving hints. And it was interesting. I think the timing of this quote comes out today, when there's the report yesterday that the Lakers are kind of recalibrating how they're going to spend their cap space, and they might not spend it all this summer, and that they might push it till the next summer. So I've seen people kind of hint at like this is Paul George's like kind of shoulder nudge of saying like, hey, like I'm still interested. Don't give up on me.
It's like reverse tampering at Pacers.
He's basically just continually subtweeting the Lakers.
I was just gonna say, somehow Magic will get fined with tampering with Paul George talking about the Lakers. So I hope he has the checkbook ready. But
Paul George is like a month away from sliding in the Lakers DMs and being like, "Hey, I'm really happy in OKC, but I haven't counted you guys out yet."
He's not going to go that far. He's just going to send us a "you up" text.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for July just to see what's going to happen. I've been waiting for it ever since last summer. I think we all have. So another player that the Lakers are going to be linked to until he signs a multi-year deal, probably somewhere else, is LeBron James, a very polarizing figure amongst Laker fans. As we saw tonight, LeBron James is still very good at the game of basketball. The Timberwolves found that out the hard way. Hani, his situation right now is it's fascinating to me, but it's got to be a nightmare for Cavs fans. There's a lot of reports that him and Dan Gilbert don't really have a relationship anymore. And they just seem to be, there's almost like some genuine disdain there for one another. And there's a lot of people that think LeBron is as good as gone from Cleveland. Doesn't mean he was signed with the Lakers, but I mean, what do you make of this situation with Cleveland struggling the way they have been, and just kind of all that we're hearing with the front office and their relationship with LeBron?
I mean, it's probably, definitely the biggest storyline in the NBA right now. Just the whole mess in the locker room, whether the Cavs players all like Isaiah Thomas or not, whether he's snitching to Woj about what's going on in the locker room. The LeBron and Dan Gilbert dynamic, I think, has been there ever since his first stay in Cleveland, and I don't think it's ever been repaired. Even when LeBron came back, I think he came back in spite of Dan Gilbert rather than because of him. And I think that's honestly a huge factor in whether or not he leaves the Cavs, which, the further along we go into all these stories and rumors, the more I kind of think he will leave the Cavs, even though I have no idea where he'll go. It just seems like at this point, he's given his hometown a championship. He doesn't really have to prove anything to anyone anymore. Why wouldn't he go to a better situation where he can, play to win championships still and, not play for an owner that he absolutely hates. And go to a team that has way more flexibility to be better than the Cavs are right now. Because, we can talk about all the weird dynamics. The fact of the matter is that they're not good right now. They're just a bad, not a bad team. They're in the playoffs, but they've been struggling over the last month or 2 months. I think they're down to 4th in their conference right now.
Third, barely.
Third, okay. Probably the win tonight got them 3rd. But yeah, we've been kind of conditioned to think that LeBron teams always do this and that they'll turn it around, and they still might, but this is just a whole new level of struggle, or struggle as LeBron calls it. So yeah, I'm expecting him to leave. I'm just not sure that the Lakers have a chance.
Houston's always been the team that I've kind of assumed that would be one of the big players for LeBron. I know this is a big if, but if they can just get rid of Ryan Anderson's just huge contract, that and basically Eric Gordon, or basically one other deal, I mean, they have the money for LeBron, and he gets to play with Harden and Chris Paul. That's always been the team I guess concerned about. I never really considered the Lakers much of a real contender for LeBron, but I 100% do not think he stays in Cleveland. Some of the stuff that's been coming out about him and Dan Gilbert's relationship, or lack thereof, really, at this point, I don't think that's reparable. And as Hani said, I mean, he did what he set out to do. He got them their title. He's given them countless finals appearances. So I think he's gone. If I had to lay money on it, I'd probably say he'll be in Houston next year. But I do think he's gone. And if nothing else, that puts the Lakers in play, I guess, in some way. Maybe they'll get a meeting with him. Who knows? But I don't think he'll be in Cleveland next year.
Am I crazy for thinking that, like, because I'm starting to lean towards, LeBron's going to leave Cleveland again, but it almost this time feels like it would be a mutual parting. Like, I feel like Cavs ownership is just ready to kind of start a new era. And, I think LeBron's influence on personnel has kind of helped put them in this rut that they're in. You look at some of the contracts that they've handed out, to guys that he wanted, like guys like J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson, guys that make a lot of money but aren't, prime contributors, like they might have been last year or 2 years ago or whatever. And, it's kind of why they are in the position that they are. Like, these contracts are so hard to move, and they don't really have assets to move, because when you're a contending team, oftentimes you'll ship out first round picks to, bring in, some veteran players to kind of try and elevate your status a little bit and give you a little bit of an edge to go and get a title. And these are long-term deals that they've got, like 3 years, 4 years, so on and so forth. They're in a bad spot, and that Brooklyn pick, I think, as far as the trade market goes, is about the only thing of value that they have right now. And they don't seem to want to part ways with it. And I don't blame them, because that's probably a top 10 pick. That whole situation is so interesting. And I can't wait to see how that all plays out, because there's a lot of drama there, and there's a lot of stuff that I think is going to happen. There's a lot of stuff that's going to get leaked. Whether it means the Lakers have a chance, I don't really know. I don't think there's any way that LeBron signs with the Lakers unless another star player is coming with him. And I would think that star has to be Paul George.
Right.
He's the only other star player on the market probably at this point.
Maybe Chris Paul. Chris Paul can start his second stint with the Lakers.
Lakers legend Chris Paul.
For a whole hour and 13 minutes or whatever it was.
On LeBron real quick, wouldn't you take the situation they're in kind of cap-wise if it meant that you're going to get a title, though, and 3 finals appearances? Because, I 100% would. I
would, but I don't know if Dan Gilbert would. Because Dan Gilbert's been kind of notorious as a cheap owner, and they have one of the biggest payrolls, and he's paying a metric bleep ton in luxury tax payments right now. And like, we've heard reports that they wanted to trade for George Hill, and basically Dan Gilbert said, we're not going to do it unless George Hill gives up guaranteed money in like the later years in his contract. So I think that's partially because they're ready for LeBron to leave. And if he does, then they don't want to be paying luxury tax money anymore, which is understandable. But it also shows that they're not really willing to kind of show that they would be paying that money if he does stay.
Yeah, the thing with that I think most people agree on at this point in time, which a lot can change in 2 months or 4 or 5 months until free agency or whatever. But I think a lot of people would agree that right now it looks, like there's at least a decent chance that LeBron actually leaves Cleveland again. The question's going to be, where does he go? And the Lakers will certainly be calling and knocking down his door to try and, give their sales pitch. But Jacob, like you mentioned, I mean, teams like Houston, like teams, and that's the thing that we've mentioned is that not a lot of teams have a lot of money to throw out. Usually, I think I'd have to look at the list again, but if I remember correctly, a lot of the teams that do aren't good teams. And LeBron's not
I'll
going to
look
go
real
somewhere
quick,
he
but
can't
it's
win.
like Chicago, Dallas, Philly, us, and that might be it.
Yeah. So, and I mean, with the Rockets, I mean, they'd have to absolutely decimate their roster
Yeah.
to create enough room for him. Because I think Clint Capella, I want to say, is he a restricted free agent this summer?
I believe so. Yeah.
I think he's due for a payday. And he's such an awesome fit with James Harden in the pick and roll game. And if you're Houston, I mean, it's as enticing as it would be to go after LeBron James. Why would you break up this team that you have? I mean, they look like a legitimate contender this year. They're really, really good with Chris Paul next to James Harden. And I mean, just that roster that they've built, they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth. So,
the Hawks were the other team that will have at least 20. The 5 teams that'll have $25 million or more are us with $47 million. This is roughly depending on player options and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulls at 41, the Sixers at 31, the Hawks at 30, the Mavericks at 25. The Rockets are 6th at $20.5 million, but that's not counting Chris Paul. So they basically won't have cap space.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of options out there, which makes it so that much more compelling. That if he leaves, it's like, where's he gonna go? I mean, teams can obviously create room, and I think if LeBron hits the market, you'd see a number of teams trying to frantically clear up cap space to try and go after him. I think the Spurs would be a team that would try. We know, I mean, everybody knows that LeBron really respects Greg Popovich.
The Spurs would have to trade so many people to get that cap space, though. But I mean, I think that's where the Lakers. That's where I kind of have optimism about the Lakers kind of saying they'll kick the can down the road, basically, is that they can be the team that basically did what Brooklyn did last year, take on the bad contract for a really good asset.
Yep.
So that a team maybe like Houston can sign LeBron, or maybe a team like the Spurs can clear up space or something like that. I don't know who or what or anything like that, but they can be that team that takes on if they're not going to get LeBron and PG re-signs with OKC, they can be the team that takes on one of these bad contracts with a asset or two to kind of to take advantage of the cap space they have.
We just need LeBron to continue to irritate Dan Gilbert to the point that he agrees to a sign and trade with the Lakers. And he'll take the necessary salary back.
Well done.
Well, I think LeBron would have. I don't even know what LeBron would have to do to make somebody that mad. But yeah, I mean, I keep saying this, but like I can't wait. Like I really can't wait until free agency. Of course, we got to get through the trade deadline tomorrow. I'll be nervous just to wake up tomorrow just to see if anything has happened. But Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, hopefully, I think we all agree we'd like to see them still be in purple and gold beyond tomorrow, and we'd like to see this young core grow together. And I think for me, I mean, I think it's still a long shot. I mean, maybe I'm pessimistic about free agency and that sort of thing, but if you could keep this core together and add Paul George and that's it, I would be so psyched. I'd be so psyched for next season. I mean, if you basically could somehow get this same starting 5 that they have now, assuming Lonzo is in Josh Hart's place, and replace KCP with Paul George, with the young guys being a little bit better because of time and development and that sort of thing, this will be a really fun team. So hopefully the Lakers are smart. They make some good moves that help them currently and in the future, and they're not mortgaging or selling off young players just for a chance to go after free agents. That's my thing is if you're going to clear up cap space, let's wait until we have something a little more concrete, which of course with Magic and as much as, he gets hit with tampering charges, maybe he knows something that
So it's very to say.
But no, I think I'd like to see them really wait until there's something more concrete before they're, I think the worst thing they could do is break up this core and start trading guys like Randle and Clarkson just for a chance to go after 2 free agents,
Right.
Let's be a little more measured, more calculated. Let's just be smart here.
And I mean, from an on-court standpoint, like, as I said, I think Clarkson's skill set's replicable. I think you can get another guard to do that. But if you trade him tomorrow or today, whenever you're listening to this, that's going to really change how this team plays because they rely a lot on Clarkson in that second unit to kind of be that point guard, be that scorer. So, yeah, if they change him, that the team's going to be significantly worse, I think, at least in the short term. Maybe they figure it out once Lonzo comes back. Maybe they have Josh Hart run point more. I don't know, but they would be significantly worse the rest of this season, I think, if you traded Clarkson, which kind of is another reason why I don't really think you need to do it right now. Wait until the summer.
And honestly, like, we forget about it, but things like team chemistry and team continuity and all that stuff matters too. And we can sit here and talk about cap space and, what kind of assets you can get. But, like, to these guys, it matters that, like, to Randle, it's going to matter that he's playing with a guy that he was drafted with and they played together on the Lakers for 4 straight years now. Or, like, even to a guy like Josh Hart or Kyle Kuzma, who've kind of been hanging out with Clarkson and joking and having Clarkson tweet about Josh Barkley and all that. Like, that sort of stuff kind of matters too. We kind of forget about the human element and how that affects the team, right. Especially one that's so young as this and isn't kind of used to being in this whole atmosphere of treating everything like a business and guys being shipped off and all of that.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that I've mentioned on Twitter that I think at some point, like, yeah, you have to think about roster continuity, especially with young players. Like, you have to give them as much time together as you can before you really just break it up, and you'll never know what could have been. I mean, roster continuity is huge. You can't keep plugging guys on 1-year deals. Because I think in a lot of those cases, you're going to get guys that, kind of play maybe a little selfishly. I don't know how much it gets thought of, like, during games, but I mean, guys on contract years, might be trying, hey, like, I'm trying to boost my value so that I can get paid next summer and so on and so forth, KCP. But no, I mean,
the other thing too, real quick, I mean, I've made this point before a couple different times, so I don't want to, like, belabor it, but it bears mentioning again, like, if you told Randle to all these things to do and he comes in the best shape in his life and plays a career year, or this basically the same with Clarkson, you tell him all these things you want him to do and he's looking like the rookie year Clarkson, and then you just up and trade him. That's a hell of a message you sent to the young guys. Like, hey, do what we ask you to do so that we can trade you for something better.
Right. And wow, totally just lost my train of thought.
I think you're going to say,
well, with Randle, hell no. I'm going to boot you from the podcast right now. But
go Wolfpack.
God, okay. Well, I guess this is going to be basically a Facebook Live where it's just me talking. But no, with Randle, a lot of people forget this, but, like, he recently turned 23. Like, a lot of people act like he's in his prime right now, and I think he's a good 3, maybe 4 years away from being in his prime. Like, he took a serious leap this year, and if he keeps doing that, I mean, we're talking about a really good NBA player in a couple of years. Yeah. So, the key for him and his future with the Lakers, assuming, he doesn't get traded tomorrow, which is what I'm hoping, is how much he, gets on the free agent market and how much teams are offering him, because if he can be brought back on a reasonable salary, then that's a huge win for the Lakers in my opinion. So,
yeah. And kind of on that note, another reason that Randle might take a deal to 2020, Anthony wrote this. going into the summer of 2020, when Ding's deal comes off the books, Lonzo and Ingram will be 23, Kuzma and Hart will be 25, Randle will be 26.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys are incredibly young. Give them time. Like, don't blow it up now. Give them time to figure this out together.
Right. I mean, and the way that timeline would work is that I think when these young guys would really start to be hitting their stride and hitting their prime, you would think, I mean, a team like the Warriors would be starting to start their descent, right? Or their descent. And like age would start to catch up with them, or, you know, I think when we see a group together for too long, especially when there's 4 players as good as those guys have, you know, you might have some ego problems or some contract disputes. And I mean, if the Warriors want to keep that team together, they're going to have to pay some serious luxury tax dollars, like major luxury tax dollars. And most, if not all, ownership groups just don't want to do that. I mean, winning is important, but when you're, you know, paying, I don't know, $300 million, for example, total with luxury tax money, not any owner, no owner is going to like that. So I think just the way that the timeline, it sucks because the Lakers haven't been in the playoffs since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can see why fans and why Magic Johnson or Jeannie Buss or Rob Pelinka would be impatient and say, we need to get this team back into postseason contention and start, you know, getting closer to where we think this franchise should be. But the key to me is to not all success in the NBA is equal. You know, I think the Lakers have enough young talent on this roster that they could put together a contender by tomorrow, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be probably a patchwork job. You know, you're talking probably creating maybe a 2 or 3 year window where the Lakers would be really good. Maybe not a contender, not a title contender, but probably a pretty high seed in the Western Conference. And a lot of fans would be happy. But the key with this youth movement and rebuilding and being patient with the young guys is you're looking for sustained success. Getting young talent on very team-friendly contracts allows you so many different options. And it's how the Warriors built their team. You know, drafting really well, making smart free agent moves, and then ultimately, you know, Kevin Durant wanted to join them, and they had a window of opportunity. Not saying that like that's a route that is realistic time and time again, but developing your young players is such a great, especially given the fact that the Lakers seem to hit on most of their draft picks. And if they continue that trend, I mean, you're talking about a team a core group that could be good for a very long time. And that's what Laker fans should want, not a 2 or 3 year window. And then we're right back in the situation the Lakers were in 2 years ago or whatever. So that's my take on it. Like, I just don't believe all success in the NBA is equal. Like, I think the Lakers have a real shot, as we're seeing now with this recent play, that these young guys can be really good. They need time. They need time and patience. And, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road, this team could be really good and, you know, very young at the same time. And that's huge. So
you failed to take into account when talking about the Warriors, though, that Durant will probably take like a $15 million pay cut, and then Clay will do the same, and then Draymond will just get paid like in Trident layers or something, and then they'll all just be one happy group running the league for the next decade.
Yeah, because if, you know, anything about human nature has taught us is that we don't like money. We like to just leave money out there for somebody else to get.
It's so annoying. I was so all about paying Sean Livingston like a huge amount of money last offseason, and then he went and signed like a $2 million deal or something.
Yeah, you get some examples like that, but when you're a star player, go get your. I always 100%. Believe players should go get their money.
Yeah,
I don't blame them one bit.
Amen.
All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we sign off?
Just a reminder that Nevada beat Boise State a couple weeks ago.
Where's the boot button? It's been a while since I've run this.
No. An interesting fact is that Grayson Allen is 5-2 against UNC in his career.
Hey, Tyler Hansbrough and Danny Green never lost at Cameron Indoor, so I'm pretty sure that they deserve a banner somewhere in that
If
building.
Grayson, when Grayson beats you guys, he'll be the same.
No, he lost last year.
I don't remember it.
Jacob, it sounds like you're tripping.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we were supposed to be on a team here.
Every man for himself.
All right. Well, if you want another interesting thing to watch tomorrow, just watch the Twitter account of me and Jacob going back and forth tomorrow night. And the Lakers also play tomorrow. They play the Thunder. I think Russell Westbrook
game tomorrow night.
I think Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony are both listed as questionable with ankle injuries for tomorrow. I did see that earlier today. Paul George is going to make sure he puts on a show for his future teammates. And it should be an interesting game. They both just played recently, and the Lakers got a big win in OKC, so hopefully they can duplicate that success tomorrow. We'll see. It's a big 24 hours, next 24 hours for the Lakers. A big game at home against a good team, and a guy that they want to sign. Obviously, a trade deadline, which we talked about plenty tonight. A lot of stuff going to be happening. So,
yeah, but OKC has an off night in LA tonight, so we'll be fine.
LA nightlife. It's a lot better than that OKC nightlife, Paul George. So. All right. I want to thank everybody that tuned in and posted comments, questions in the live chat, and everybody that just tuned in to watch. Appreciate it. For all your trade deadline coverage, LakersOutsiders.com. We're going to be on top of everything for you. So stay tuned. I feel like we should get a timer going. I think we're down to 14 hours now?
Right at
15.
Right at 15 hours. 14 hours and 59 minutes. So, yeah. So stay tuned to LakersOutsiders.com. If you like the podcast, you can find us here on YouTube when we record these live. We're also on iTunes and on Podbean. You can also find us on LakersOutsiders.com, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find us. It's 2018. You should know the drill by now. So, Hani, I want to thank you for joining me. Jacob, I can't really thank you for much this week. Maybe if the game goes how I hope it does. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Again, thank you all for tuning in. We'll have a pod tomorrow after the game to recap the trade deadline and the game itself, I guess, if anything noteworthy happens there. Hopefully the Lakers continue their recent trend and keep the wins flowing. So thanks again, everybody. And this is the Lakers Outsiders signing off.
Shout out.